Okay, so this lesson is going to be starting off with factoring trinomials as well, except there's a different kind here, okay? So this kind of trinomials is ax squared plus by is equal to c, okay? So the difference here is there's an a in front, so the coefficient might be 3 or 4, okay, or 5. Before we were used to the coefficient just being 1, okay? So let's look here. Again, we're going to set it up the same way. We have 7x squared plus 22x plus 3, okay? So we're multiplying the first coefficient times the last number, so we have 7 times 3 this time, which is 21, okay? And then adding up to 22. Okay, so again, same way, it's just that the coefficients here are going to be not just 1. Okay, so multiplying to 21, I have 7 times 3, or 21 times 1, okay? And to get to 22, I can do 21 plus 1, okay? So both positive here. Okay, so again, here, this part's a little bit different. So instead of here putting 22x, I'm going to rewrite the center term as 21x plus 1x, okay? That's all I did. The rest stays the same. I'm going to bring down the plus 3 and the 7x squared. Okay, so again, the only thing that changed is I wrote 21x plus 1x instead of 22. Okay, so now I'm going to use something called grouping. So I can group together the first two and the second two. Okay, so now I want to think about, well, what can I factor out of the first term? I can factor out a 7 and an x. So what's left is x plus 3. Okay, you can double check. 7 times x, yep, that's x squared, and 7x times 3 is 21x, okay? So the only thing that I can factor out of this right here that I see is just the 1, okay? So it stays the same, x plus 3. You have to factor out something. Okay, so then the next step here, which is what I wanted, you want to get the same x plus 3, x plus 3, okay? So the first parenthesis is going to be 7x plus 1, and then the second one is the one that's repeated, x plus 3, okay? So now this one is completely factored. Okay, so just to go back on what I did is I found two terms that were the same to change the center term and break it apart into 4. Okay, so let's pause the video for a moment and I'd like you to try this one on your own. Okay, so here for this one we have two numbers that multiply to 5 times 2, which is 10, and add up to 7. Okay, so right when I think about 10, I think of 5 times 2, and then 5 plus 2 is going to be equal to 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break apart this 7x to 5x plus 2x. So 2x squared plus 5x plus 2x. Okay, so these two here I've broken apart to make it into 4 terms. Alright, next step, group. Okay, so the next step is going to be to group them and factor out whatever I can. So in the first parentheses, I see that I can take out an x, and that's really the only thing. Okay, in the second term, I don't see anything that I can take out, so that means I can take out a 1. Always, you can, whenever you're dividing by 1, it's the same, remember. Okay, so the outside becomes 1 parenthesis, x plus 1. We know it's plus because it's positive 1. If it was negative 1, it would be minus. And then these terms here, 2x plus 5, are the same. So the one that repeats is the next. Okay, and now I have my trinomial completely factored. So there are some cases where you might need to do one extra step, and that is taking out the greatest common factor first and then creating your table. Okay, so off to the side I'm going to rewrite my original equation right here. So I have 3x squared plus 24x plus 45. Okay? So the greatest common factor that I can take out between all three of these numbers, 3, 24, and 45, is the number 3. So if I take out 3, I now have x squared plus 8x plus 15. Okay? So now the part that we have left over is the first version of trinomials with a coefficient of 1. Okay? So now I want two numbers that multiply to be 15 and add up to be 8. So let's think about 15 times 1. No, that won't get me to 8. 5 times 3 will, because 5 plus 3 is 8. So in trinomials with coefficient of 1, we just have x and x. And then they're both positive. Positive 5 and positive 3. So plus 5, plus 3. And then we still have to bring down our coefficient here of 3. Okay? So in this case, I took out the greatest common factor first, and then factored the trinomial. And your final factoring will be right here. Okay, so I'd like you to pause the video and try this one for a minute. Okay, so the first thing that you would want to do is factor out what you can from this trinomial. I see that I can factor out a 2. So what I would have left over is x squared plus 7x plus 12. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to be 12 and add up to 7. Those numbers are 4 times 3 and 4 plus 3. Okay, they're both positive. So this trinomial right here becomes x plus 4 and x plus 3. Okay, then I need to bring down the 2 that I had factored out. And I now have 2 times x plus 1 times 2 times x plus 4 times x plus 3. Okay, so in part 2, we're going to determine whether a polynomial is prime. So that means that we can't find two numbers that will work, and then we're also going to try and solve them. Okay, so if we look here, I'm going to rewrite this. 2x squared plus 5x minus 2. Okay, so let's see if we can take out a greatest common factor. Now I don't see anything we can take out, so now I'm going to think about multiplying and adding. So two numbers that multiply to negative 4 and add to 5. Okay, always start with the multiplying first because there are less options and it will help you. So I can do negative 4 times 1 or 4 times negative 1. It still is not going to help me add up to 5. 2 times negative 2. And that's really all I can think of. Okay, those are all of the things that multiply to negative 4. And none of these options will help me add up to 5. So I don't have a match. So when you can't find something that matches, it means that this trinomial is prime. Okay, so pause the video for a moment and try this one on your own. Okay, so let's do this one together and check it over. So we saw that we couldn't take out a greatest common factor because there's nothing we can take out. So now I want two numbers that multiply to be 48 and add to negative 25. Okay, so multiplying to 48, I can do 12 times 4. I could do negative 12 times negative 4. I can do 24 times 2. Okay, that will give me 26. That won't work. 16 times 3. Okay, I can do a negative for both of these. So I've tried almost all of my options. I can also do negative 24 and negative 2. And nothing is going to help me add up to negative 25. Okay, so your answer for this one should have been prime. Okay, we can't factor it. It's prime. Okay, the last part in this section is solving for the equation, okay? It's just like we did before where we want to first set our equation equal to 0, okay? Remember, anytime there's an equal sign, it means you need to solve for x. So let's go ahead and add 3x. So now I have 8x squared minus 6x minus 5 is equal to 4. Okay, now I want to bring the 4 over to make it equal to 0. So I have 8x squared minus 6x minus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, so now that I have here, I'm going to do my add and subtract, or my multiply and add table. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to negative 72 and add to negative 6. Okay, so here are my options. I have negative 9 times 8. Let's try something else. Negative 3 times 24. Still won't work. What about, 6 times 12. And if the 12 is negative, I can do negative 12 plus 6. Okay, so negative 6 and negative 72. Okay, so that's when I'm going to rewrite the center term. Okay, so the first term stays the same, 8x squared. Instead of negative 6, I'm going to go negative 12x plus 6x minus 9. Okay, and again here the order doesn't matter as well. Okay, you could have put the 6 first and the negative 12 second. So group them and factor out what you can. Okay, so I see that I can take out from the first one, I can take out a 4 and an x. So what I have left over is 2x minus 3. Okay, and the next one I can take out a 3, and what I'll have left is 2x minus 3. Okay, this is good. This is what you want to have the same. So the outside terms become their own, 4x plus 3, and the second one, 2x minus 3 that's repeated, okay, is equal to 0. So in this case, when we have an equation, there is going to be one more step, okay? So what I'm going to do is right over here, 4x plus 3 is equal to 0, this one right here, and then I'm going to solve. So I have 4x is equal to negative 3, divide by 4, and x is equal to negative 3/4. Okay? And then the other part here is going to be equal to 0. Sorry, I'm running out of room. So here I have 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So now I have 2x is equal to 3. And x is equal to 3 over 2. Okay, so there are two answers here. X is equal to 3 over 2, and x is equal to negative 3/4. Okay, so for this last one, I'd like you to try this one on your own. So let's pause the video. Okay, so here what you should have done first is set your equation equal to 0. And I can do that by adding 10 to the left. So I now have 5x squared plus 20 to negative 2/5. And if I subtract 5 on both sides here, I get x is equal to negative 5. Okay, so just to review over what we did in this one, is we first set our equation equal to 0. Then we found out that 25 plus 2 are a match. So we changed 27x to 25 here and 2. We grouped them. And then I factored out each group. The part that's factored out becomes the first parentheses here. And the one that repeats becomes here. And then we take each part and we set each of them equal to 0 to solve for x. Okay? So in this lesson we talked about factoring out trinomials that have more than just one for the coefficient, also seeing if trinomials are prime, and then solving equations by factoring.